In this video, we're going to look at multiplying radicals as well as dividing radicals. Pretty much after the very first step in any of these problems. Beyond that, we're just doing simplifying, which I made a video for that also. But our first goal always when we see multiplying or dividing is that we want to multiply or divide our two radicals together. They do not have to be the same. In math, I cannot add something like this, something like 3 plus 4x, but I can multiply 3 times 4x, so that would be 12x. So it does not matter that these things are not the same. I would be able to multiply them together. So for this first one, I would do the 3 times 15 would be 45. So now I'm working with the square root of 45. And so I'd again want to think what's the biggest perfect square that goes into that. And hopefully pretty quickly you would figure out that 9 is. If you want to split it into two separate, go for it. But in the end, we're going to figure out that the square root of 9 would become 3. I cannot simplify the square root of 5 any further. So this 3 times the square root of 15 turned into the square root of 45, which would simplify to 3 square roots of 5. If for something like the second one, I threw variables in the mix, we would want to multiply our coefficients together. So 35 times 7 gives you 245. You're going to add exponents on your variables, so that would be x cubed. And we are doing the square root of that. You'd have to figure out what's the biggest perfect square that goes into 245. And hopefully eventually you would come across 49 times 5. And then we've got that x cubed. And now I'm just working on simplifying. So the square root of 49 would become 7. If I have x cubed, it means I'm going to have one set that would be a perfect set since I would have a set of 2. The other would be left inside the radical inside the square root along with the 5, which is not a perfect square. So I multiplied together to get square root of 245 x cubed, which ends up simplifying into 7x times the square root of 5x. All right, when it comes to dividing, so very similar to multiplying, I'm going to divide it out first. So I'm going to take my 135 divided by 5, which ends up being 27. So just by dividing, now I have this, and then I would need to worry about seeing if I can simplify. So square root of 27, the biggest perfect square that goes into that would be 9. So we're working with 9 times 3. The square root of 9 becomes 3, and I cannot do anything to simplify the square root of 3 further. So the square root of 27 would be written as 3 square roots of 3 in its simplified form. If we're going to work with something with variables, after we've divided our coefficients, we just need to make sure that we are subtracting the exponents on the variables. So I would do 168 divided by 7, which is 24. I'm going to subtract my exponent, so that would leave me x squared. I need to think about perfect cubes this time since this is a cube root. So to simplify, hopefully I would realize that 8 goes into 24. So 8 times 3. And then we've got the x squared. So the cube root of 8 becomes 2. I'm not going to be able to do anything with the cube root of 3 or the x squared part because if I only have 2 x's, I cannot make a nice group. So, sorry, that's kind of sloppy. Let me do that again. All right, so we would have 2 times the cube root of 3x squared. So again, I divided it first, then I worked on simplifying. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit with multiplying and dividing radicals.